Biodiversity recovery begins locally.
In communities, in the field, and through conservation partnerships around the world.
And together, these actions are helping shape a better future for species.
The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework gives the world a clear blueprint to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. Target 4 is especially important. It calls on us to halt species extinctions, support species recovery, and safeguard genetic diversity. But species recovery does not happen in the abstract. It happens species by species, place by place, through science-based action, long-term commitment, and partnerships that bring people, knowledge, and resources together. For decades, the IUCN Species Survival Commission has worked with partners across the world to provide the scientific foundations for species conservation. Today, that expertise must be connected even more strongly with actions on the ground.
Target 4 of the KMGBF underscores the vital role of both in situ and ex situ conservation. Across the global zoo and aquarium community, WASA members are contributing to species recovery every day through conservation breeding, reintroduction, research, education, field conservation, and community engagement. Working alongside government, scientists, local communities, and conservation partners, these efforts help translate global biodiversity goals into action on the ground. This is the spirit of the International Day for Biological Diversity 2026. Local action connected through partnerships, creating global impact.
Reverse the Red was built on this idea, that species recovery is possible when science, institutions, communities, and governments work together around a shared goal. Co-founded by the IUCN Species Survival Commission and the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and with our other key partners, Reverse the Red is helping turn ambition into action by mobilizing commitments, connecting efforts, celebrating progress, and supporting measurable species recovery. As we look towards COP17 in Yerevan, Armenia, and the first global review of progress under the KMGBF, it is essential that the contributions of species practitioners are recognized and aligned with governments so that we can achieve measurable progress toward a clear and common goal.
Species recovery happens one action at a time.
Across the world, zoos and aquariums are already helping to turn the tide for species.
Because local action creates global impact.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us for this International Day for Biological Diversity. We are so excited that you are here. The theme, as you heard in our video, which was produced jointly with our co-chairs, the IUCN Species Survival Commission and the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, the theme is acting locally for global impact. And I'm so excited that we have such a wonderful set of panelists and speakers today to really share what that means for Reverse the Red. Just wanted to do a brief thank you here at the beginning to the rest of our governing council as well, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, Rewild, the Toronto Zoo, and Zoological Society of London. And we have a few financial sponsors as well that make things possible for us. Broadly, they make the webinars possible, all of our work at the local level to act locally for global impact, the national level and the global level. And then for this webinar, we also have a really special thank you to the Mohammed bin Zayed Species Conservation Fund and Synchronicity Earth, who helped us create the Accelerator Award and really fund all of the work that's going on that you'll hear about in the upcoming presentations from our Accelerator Award winners. So I won't take away too much else from the rest of the time here, but a couple of housekeeping notes. We are recording and we'll have this recording available on YouTube as soon as we are done here. And as we go through, if you have any questions for our panelists, please utilize the Q&A function at the bottom of your webinar, and we'll get to those as we sort of finish up the presentations. We also have the ability to have translated captions for you. Those are produced by AI, and you can select those at the bottom of your Zoom as well. Without any further ado, thank you so much for coming, and I am going to turn it over to Caitlin Brandt, Reverse the Red Species Impact Coordinator, to introduce more about Reverse the Red and the link to the theme for today.
Hello, as Megan said, my name's Caitlin, and I'm the Reverse the Red Species Impact Coordinator. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. All right. So, as you've heard, it's International Day for Biodiversity, and the theme this year is acting locally for global impact. And I think something really inspiring is that there are a ton of people doing species conservation around the world. At Reverse the Red, we have something called the Species Pledge. And what we're trying to find out is who's doing what for species around the world. So we made this database. We want to know what actions are happening. And those are from the GSAP, the Global Species Action Plan. So things like assessment, ex situ work, biobanking, in situ stuff, habitat, all of those things are included in the Species Pledge. With this, we can also identify what gaps there are. So what critically endangered species, what target 4 species under the GBF, what needs help, and what is not being acted on. Finally, it increases collaboration between governments and civil society. Something we're working on at Reverse the Red is working with countries on their target 4 list. So the target 4 is halting human-induced extinction as part of the Global Biodiversity Framework, the GBF. We're working with countries, and the Species Pledge helps us see who on the ground is working on those species that can align with their government's work. So that was a lot of jargon, but what is the pledge really? It's a commitment to action aimed towards the recovery of wild populations. So it's a short form that captures your current work or your planned work in the near future with a specific species. And we have that all on a database online publicly, includes organization name, that species they're working on, the country they're working in, and those conservation actions I just mentioned. Again, this is helping us map global conservation action and align efforts towards halting extinctions around the world. And we believe at Reverse the Red that a number of success stories could be multiplied with, the communication between ourselves, adequate resourcing, which is where the Accelerator Award comes in, and, essentially helping each other. We also have something called the Conservation Status Improvement Guidelines. You can use the QR code there, but it's a helpful tool to find suitable species if you're looking for your next conservation action. And all of this is to reverse the red. So downlist species on the red list. If you haven't already, some of you may be familiar with the Species Pledge. If you want to make one, there are a lot of reasons to. So that global contribution towards target 4 for halting extinctions, international recognition. Reverse the Red has a really large network around the world, and we'd love to share what you're doing. National alignment. So like I said, we're working with governments too, and trying to do a coordinated effort for species recovery. Increased collaboration, so you can search on the platform too, and see who has, maybe you need a translocation expert in your country, and you can see that there are some on the Species Pledge and get in contact with them. Finally, access to funding. So that's where the Accelerator Award comes in again. So if you haven't already made a pledge, make one today. I'm sure we can put it in the chat. If you have any questions, you can email me. My email's on the screen. So that's the Species Pledge, and we wanted to highlight it today because there is so much species work happening around the world. And I talked about adequate resourcing, and that's why we created the Accelerator Award. We wanted to accelerate recovery for a species, a single species, and it could be anywhere in the world. And we had at least one winner in 3 kingdoms. So we had animal, fungi, and plant. We started this in 2025, and we have 3 of our 2025 winners here today who are going to tell you about their project. Each organization that applied had to have a species pledge, and it was the first step of figuring out what recovery actions are happening and what needs to happen to recover the species. It's open to species that are endangered, critically endangered, extinct in the wild, or data deficient with that need to save them or protect them. So we did this for the first time, like I said, in 2025. It's a yearly award. The pre-applications for 2026 have just closed, but we'll be back again in 2027. And thank you to everyone who applied. I just wanted to highlight some of the benefits. It's 15,000 USD, and then also storytelling and strategic support from our Reverse the Red network. So without further ado, we have 3 of our 2025 winners here today who are going to tell you about, the inspiring work that they're doing. We're going to start off with Oliver, representing Bristol Zoological Society, and then we'll go on to Eileen and Fernando. So Oliver, take it away. You can stop sharing.
Great stuff. Thank you, Caitlin. Can you see the presentation?
I can.
Super stuff. Great. Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for coming, and thanks for the opportunity from Reverse Thread to also talk about our work. So my name's Oliver, and I am the program lead for Bristol Zoological Society's Tanzania Conservation Program. And I'm going to be talking to you today about our Kimboza Forest Conservation and Restoration Program, which is being partly funded and supported by the Reverse the Red Accelerator Award. So at the core of this project, we have a focal species, which is our pledge species, which is the turquoise dwarf gecko, Lygodactylus williamsi. So turquoise dwarf geckos are in Tanzania. They're in which is in East Africa, and they are isolated to one particular forest block called Kimboza. Now, we've been working with the species since about 2015. So we're a zoo based in the UK, and we've been contributing to an ex situ breeding program. And this was following a seizure of this species from nearby airport in 2015. And since then, we've been sort of working towards bringing a bit more of a one-plan approach to what we're doing and putting some of our efforts to being in situ as well as being ex situ. And that's kind of where this sort of project came around. So Kimboza itself is faced with a myriad of different issues. I've kind of broken them down into 2 categories here to make them a bit clearer. So there's issues within the habitat. So one of the big ones is encroaching wildfires. As we all know, as global warming increases and aridity increases in these areas, wildfires can move through the region, and that's currently destroying a lot of the habitat which the gecko resides in. This is also kind of working in tandem with an invasive tree species in this landscape called the Spanish cedar tree, Cedrela audata. These trees were brought in the 1980s to the region as a source of kind of cheap lumber. But since then, they've grown exponentially throughout the forest, and they make up a huge percent of the canopy cover now. And when fires move through the region as well, it's been proven that they come back at 24 times more abundancy following the fires. So they just can't outcompete the native flora within the habitat when these fires come through, which is a big problem. There's also a lot of issues that are specifically facing this species as well. There's currently a bit of a knowledge gap for williamsi. So the last update for the IUCN was in 2012. And we currently have no accurate population estimates, and there's a lack of data of us understanding how this habitat degradation is also impacting their distribution or occupancy across the forest. As well as that, they have this really heavy dependency on one species of tree called Pandanus rabarensis. So all these issues kind of coupled together, especially with the fact that they rely so heavily on this tree species to live, that's being outcompeted by these invasive tree species, kind of puts them in a pretty poor predicament. A lot of these issues have been being addressed over the past few years, namely by one of our partners out there, Sequoia University of Agriculture. And this has been assisted by a European supporting group of European zoos through an institute called ZGAP. And they've kind of been working to implement some of these methods within the forest. And we've been working under this Reverse the Red Accelerator grant to have a few key criteria we're trying to achieve. So Firstly, we're looking to plant 5,000 native seedlings. We want to remove up to 50,000 of those invasive Spanish cedar trees. We're training 11 local community members in how to effectively propagate, plant, and remove those invasive trees to increase capacity and make it so that the expertise is within the local landscape. We've also been providing hands-on forestry training for 150 undergraduate students from Sequoia University of Agriculture as part of their forestry BSc. We're also maintaining 15 kilometers of fire breaks. And then lastly, we're monitoring gecko populations so we can fill in those literature gaps and have a better understanding about the population and its abundancy. And so far, we're about halfway through the project, and we've seen quite a bit of success so far. So we've managed to plant out 4,000 of those native seedlings from an assembly of 20 different targeted species, which also includes the screw pine tree to help aid with the gecko's population recovery. We've still got 1,000 more to plant out, but that's going to be coming over the course of the next month. We've had a visit from 150 students who have been working to actually plant out those seedlings. So as well as getting the experience and the knowledge as to how the operation works, they're also facilitating out the planting of the seedlings, which is extra beneficial. We've had 2 workshops take place, and those 2 workshops have been training the community members, as I said, in those skills for propagation, planting, invasive species removal. And then we've also managed to establish our spots for this long-term monitoring of these geckos. And just to kind of highlight in the region where we're working, so this is a map that sort of shows Kimboza Forest Reserve. The tiny little purple circles are these gecko monitoring sites. They have a bit of a unique methodology by which we monitor them because we know they're so heavily reliant on this species of tree. We don't need to do traditional population methods. We can utilize slightly more bespoke ones for them, simply going to these allocated sites and monitoring them in known populations of screw pine trees. One of the issues we kind of did have in the project as we went along was trying to find the best areas to kind of restore. Originally, we wanted to restore and put a lot of our efforts in the south because there's already some ongoing work in the north. But the Tanzanian Forestry Service requested that we move sites halfway through the project, which, you know, to align with that kind of legal compliance, we did that. But it meant that we had to sort of do a bit of shifting and last minute movements to things. And then upcoming over the next few months, we will be maintaining our fire breaks. So the fire breaks, one we're particularly going to be focusing on is in the south of the forest. It's a known area that kind of straddles the agricultural land, but it's also better to maintain it during sort of June, October, during the long dry season in Tanzania. We'll also be starting to remove the invasive Spanish cedar tree. You can see here in the middle, it can currently, as far as we know, only be removed effectively using ring barking, which is quite a labor-intensive process. And then lastly, towards August, November, we'll be returning to those planting sites to monitor the seedling survivorship and then weed and help ensure that those seedlings go on to flourish and grow. So yeah, some exciting stuff coming up in the next few months as well. And that's it for my time slot. Thanks for listening. And yeah, as Caitlin said, I'm happy to field any questions later on during the Q&A. And if anyone wants to contact me to learn more about the project, my email is just attached there.
Thank you, Oliver. Next up, we have Aileen Anderson from GVB Conservancy in South Africa.
Great. Thanks, Caitlin. Can you see my screen? It's all good?
Yes, it's come up.
Perfect. Hi. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Aileen Anderson from Grootvaardersdorp Conservancy in South Africa. I'm the general manager of the organization, and it's great to be able to share the work we're doing on protecting the Trotto redfin. So this little redfin is found in the Hayes Trotto catchment in the Western Cape, South Africa, critically endangered. And just a little bit more about the background to this fish. So its first type specimen was found in the Trotto system. But over the last 4 or 5 years, when we've been monitoring it, we're actually no longer finding this redfin in the Trotto system. And we think that's because of the poor water quality and also competition from invasive fish. So it really is now only contained in this Hayes River catchment. And this Hayes River is also the only water supply for the town of Barrydale and the surrounding agricultural community. And it breeds in this pool just upstream of or just near the abstraction point for the town of Barrydale. And there is an invasive fish barrier at this point. So everywhere below that that barrier, you'll get tilapia in the system as well. And those tilapia thankfully don't predate on the redfin, but they do compete with the redfin for habitat. There are no bass yet in the system, but there are some worrying bass in the farm dam. So if they were to get into the system, that would be really devastating for the species. So in this little stretch there, and you can see how small it is, that is the only place where you actually get the redfin, where there are no invasive fish. But in the summer months, because it's below the abstraction point for the town, the pools are very, very dry and very, very stagnant, and not great habitat for the redfin. In this stretch, you do get this redfin, but because of the impact on the river, we're seeing parasitic growth on the redfin, so they don't appear to be very healthy. We're doing a lot of work in understanding that parasitic relationship. So the redfin do occur there, but not in healthy or large numbers, in good condition. But upstream of a natural barrier, there is very nice habitat for the redfin. And so the project that we're looking at with Reverse the Red is to investigate the potential of moving this redfin from this very range restricted area into new habitat. And there've never been fish found in this habitat. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the kind of images we get, particularly in the summer months, very stagnant pools, low flow, poor water quality. And then on the right-hand side, you can see if I was a fish, I'd want to live there. Beautiful pools, good water quality, really, really lovely habitat. But there's kind of quite a few discussions that's going on about the pros and cons of doing this translocation. And one of the things that we feel very strongly about is that you can't be doing this translocation as an excuse to sort of abandon all hope for the river. Even if we do this translocation, we're still very committed. The ideal is to protect its existing habitat. And so we're doing this over and beyond the Reverse the Red project, working with stakeholders to raise awareness around the river, incentivize changes in action. We're working with engineers, the local municipality, to look at different water balance models to understand the flow, looking at infrastructure options where we can change the way water comes out of the river so that there's more water flow during the summer months, working with the agricultural community, and looking at real nature positive options, removing invasive vegetation, which creates employment in the area, as well as restoring the riparian edge of the river. So all of these options are ongoing, but they are long-term solutions. Any kind of river project where it involves infrastructure, there's long lead times, and they're expensive options. So while we investigate these, we're now actively looking under the Reverse the Red Fund to do this translocation. But there's some debates that are going on in terms of that as well. You can't just move, say, one species to the potential threat of another. And we would be moving these redfin into an area where fish have never been found. So there definitely could be an impact and would be an impact on the invertebrate population. So what we're trying to do is to understand the extent of that impact on the invertebrate population. And in terms of how we do that, over the last 6 months, we've done extensive studies in looking at understanding that invertebrate population and comparing where there are fish, where they're not, and trying to model and understand what is going to happen if we introduce this redfin into this fishless habitat. And there's been quite a lot of challenges in trying to unpack this. One of the most predominant challenges is just the current lack of taxonomic knowledge and expertise that we have around identifying and understanding these assemblages of invertebrates in the freshwater environment. There just really aren't enough people that can identify these invertebrates, particularly to species level. We can do it to family level, but when you start getting down to species level, it's really challenging to get that knowledge. We know potentially that there's already one novel species that we may have found. We're not really sure, and we really lack access to specialists at the moment to identify those. And even if we had the specialists, it's quite a time-consuming process to identify all of these samples. We're working in quite remote areas, removing them out of the rivers, getting them to the labs and identifying them. And then added to that, there's permit challenges that delay the project. Working with a critically endangered fish in a river, it does take time to get permission to be able to do some of this work. And then because a lot of the specialists we're dealing with are volunteering some of their time, we can't afford to bring a lot of them in. So a lot of them are volunteering their time. So it's quite difficult to get all of this input together from all of these different specialists. And then just to add to the challenge, just before this project started, one of the lead invertebrates who was working with us tragically was killed in a car accident. And we haven't really been able to fill that gap within the research institution. So I just wanted to flag how important it is as conservationists to have the taxonomic support in terms of the work we do, because it really is a really big gap at the moment. How are we overcoming these? Well, we definitely do a lot of data sharing between experts and sometimes even bringing in experts outside of the country to help us, bringing in some of Moose's old students. We've managed to get Christian Fry, who's a private consultant who's assisting us with this, and he's roped in a whole lot of his friends who sort of volunteer and give inputs because they really believe in this project. And then we're just recognizing that we're working within the limitations of our existing taxonomic knowledge. We have to make decisions potentially at family level as we build more knowledge around the species level identification. And because of some of the gaps in knowledge, we're looking at potentially a phased approach to the translocation. There is 10 kilometers of river there where we could introduce the redfin, but possibly a phased approach of 1 or 2 pools to start off with as we identify more species, as we better understand the interaction between the redfin and the invertebrates. Because the redfin thankfully can't fly, and the invertebrates can, so we can come and find some barriers in that 10 kilometers where we could start with a limited introduction, and then depending on those results, we could expand that translocation. And there's some of our next steps. At the moment, we're looking at gathering fin clips for genetic analysis. As we go forward with this translocation, it's really important that we have a good understanding of the genetic spread. So when we start moving species, we really know where we're going to take the individuals from. In July, we're bringing together all the experts, the parasitologists, engineers, invertebrates experts, fish experts, water quality experts, all coming together to tackle this project, look at all the reports that's been done over the last 6 months, and then plan out the next steps. As part of that, we also anticipate we have to do some more analysis. The sampling we did in December was a low flow sample. We may need to do some high flow samples in July and look at some of the gaps that we're aware of in the data set. And then in September, October, we'll be looking at starting with the translocation, potentially into 1 pool, and then maybe more depending on what comes out of the workshop in July. So yeah, that's where we're at with this project. And thanks to everyone involved. We've got a great team working with us on this. And then there's our fish. And it's actually one of the things that's quite unique about this fish is the rivers that we're working on are actually quite brown in color. So it's actually very, very difficult for us to get a picture of our species in situ. So this is one of my favorite pictures of the fish because you can actually see it in situ. So any questions? As Oliver said, happy to ask them, or you're welcome to get in touch with me if you want to chat about it more afterwards.
Thank you so much. I feel like a lot of people can relate to those challenges. All right, we have Fernando. Fernando is from Geki in Mexico, and they're working on the Townsend Shearwater. Take it away.
Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, can you see the presentation?
I can see it, but it's in the notes mode, so I can see your notes as well.
Okay. Okay, can you see it now?
Yep, looks great.
Well, sorry for the delay. My name is My name is Fernando Solís, and I work for Grupo de Ecología en Conservación de Islas. I'm the project coordinator of the Revillagigedo Archipelago, and today I'm going to talk to you about the update of the safeguarding of the Thousand Shearwater Pufinos auricularis on Clarion Island, Mexico. So this is the Thousand Shearwater Pufinos auricularis. It's a sea bird critically endangered. because of their very restricted area of distribution, and the population is estimated in less than 200 breeding pairs. It is an endemic species from Mexico. It used to nest in 3 islands of the Revillagigedo archipelago, which are San Benedicto, Socorro, and Clarion. And their non-reproductive distribution is a little more southern than Mexico. And this is a quick view of the 3 nesting islands. From top to bottom are San Benedicto, Socorro, and Clarion in the bottom. So the main threats for tonsil shearwater are invasive alien species like cats, rodents, and rabbits. But also it has native predators like the clipperton land crab, the clarion snake, ravens, and the red-tailed hawk. So our work is focused on Clarion Island, which was once the main breeding area for the tonsil shearwater before the invasive species were introduced. And our main goals on this project was to install 2 enclosures, predator-proof enclosures of 400 square meters every one, and they are already developed on Clarion and working well. So after develop the enclosures, we remove all the invasive and native predators from the enclosures, trapping the land crabs and removing by hand the snakes and rabbits. And after that, we install 2 artificial colonies of 10 artificial burrows each one, and everyone is every colony is assisted by a social attraction system within the enclosures, and some of the results so far are that we have recorded 128 direct shearwater interactions with the calling and overflying on the over the artificial colony. Some other activities is the monitoring of the native vegetation regeneration after excluding the rabbits. And this is a baseline we are developing and are on their analysis right now. And with this, we can compare in the future the recovery of the vegetation inside the fence and compare to outside. So additional activities, we are also monitoring the natural burrows on Clarion Island and of tonsil shearwater. And we have found this year 1 active burrow, and one good news is that we recorded a successful hatching of a chick of the tonsil shearwater, and this is encouraging because it's the first chick after 30 years of no record of chicks here. So with this project, we are looking to increase occupancy area of the species by the successful nesting in the protected areas on the enclosures on the island. Also to increase the breeding success of the species by the population growth by increasing the juvenile recruitment and improving habitat quality through native vegetation recovery. So some challenges we have facing in the Interpro are logistical constraints and challenges in the procurement of fencing materials. Our main provider run out of stock of the mesh. So the installation of the second enclosure was delayed, but we found an alternative supplier that involved different challenges to the package of the send of the mesh to Mexico. But we solved it and we found different ways to acquire the mesh, and we already have it. We finally installed the second fence in March 2026. We also have some personal shortages and operational constraints. We have limited availability of trained personnel. Some of our personnel on the island got sick, so we have to make different movements of personnel to solve this problem. And some other colleagues couldn't reach the boat that reached the island on time. So from a team of 4, we work on the second fence, only 2. So we adapted our work to construct the second fence and extend the time and location, but it's working right now. So with this, I want to thanks to our collaborators in all around the world for all their support, and without them, this project wouldn't be possible. So they are essential for this project. And with this, thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. And can I just say, he's here and it's 4:30 a.m. for him. So thank you for coming today. That's not a nice time.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and it's super exciting. The first chick in 30 years has been born on the island. That's great news.
Yeah, it's really great news. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to ask all of the panelists to turn your cameras back on because we're going to do a short discussion, and then we'll open it up to all of the participants if they have any questions for you guys. Again, thank you all for being here. I think the theme of International Biodiversity Day, acting locally for global impact, is shown really well by these projects. Goal A of the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework is halting human-induced extinction tenfold by 2050. And all of these projects are doing just that. So, doing what you can, where you can, and it makes real global impact. My first question for you guys, and maybe we'll start with Oliver, and then Eileen, and then Fernando, is what is something unexpected you've learned or encountered during this project?
Great. Yeah, so good question. Thanks, Caitlin. I would say the thing that I've learned most about this project is learning how to do things in a bit more of a bespoke way for the specific taxa that we're working on. So, for example, we found out, I think I mentioned it in my talk, but about new methods which would specifically be utilized on this species, which might not necessarily apply for others. But, when you're sort of going through your career as a conservationist, you sort of learn to sort of fall within a norm, and then you start to learn there's a bit more bespoke things that you can be applying for them. And we've also learned a great deal about the benefits of having a one-plan approach to everything that we do. So we have the benefit of captive population where we can learn certain things in an ex situ environment, which we're looking to apply for the species going forwards. Some of those things can be done under this remit, but some of them would be potentially for the longer survivorship of the species. And that could be everything from potential eDNA monitoring, better informed genetic understanding of the species, the potential for capture bred individuals to be released back into the wild. All these kind of little things you start to learn as you sort of dig into the project. And it's nice to sort of see these additional avenues go down. So that's something I feel I've been learning a lot about with this project.
That's great. And I think, yeah, things happen, and almost every conservation project, we run into things where it has to turn into a bespoke work. So thank you. Aileen?
Yeah, so one of the areas that I found absolutely fascinating is when we've been looking at the parasites that are on these redfin. So it was obviously an important part of the project because we didn't want to be introducing a parasite potentially into a population, because you only get the dominance of the parasites in the lower stretches of the river. And so we brought in a whole lot of parasitologists to study the growths on these redfin. And it's absolutely incredible to watch these parasitologists unpack the cycles. So it's actually a snail. It goes from a bird to a snail into the redfin, but they don't really understand all the interactions between them. And so what we're looking at is, if we remove the snail, is that going to break the cycle? Are there snails found up in the new habitat if there are no snails? It's such a niche and such a unique area to actually understand a tiny little thing that you can't even see on your species, to understand how that's impacting. And one of the big findings was that we were not expecting there to be any parasites upstream in the good habitat, but actually when they really started analyzing the parasites, there were actually some parasites, even though you couldn't see them with the naked eye. But in the lower stretches, you just have a more dominance of them. So when the fish is stressed, that's when you get these black spots. But the fact that it's part of just the natural cycle, that there are, all these species have all these ecosystems on them that we know so little about. There's a whole little sub-story going on there between the snails and the birds and the fish that we barely understand. So just unpacking that and understanding it has just been a really interesting part of the project.
Wow. Yeah. It really shows how little we know about microscopic organisms.
We know
nothing. What a crazy life cycle that parasite has. Great. Thank you. And Fernando.
Yeah, well, I think my answer is related to the challenges. So because different things can be wrong in some time. So in this case, the mesh that run out of stuff and personnel constraints. So I think what we learned is that never give up, keep the heads up, look for alternatives and ask for help when you can, and be persistent.
Yeah, that's a really inspiring one. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges in conservation, and it's so complicated, and you have to be an expert in everything from fencing to parasites. So that's a really, really nice answer. Right. So I have a few more questions for you guys. And then again, we'll open it up. So if anyone has any questions, please put it in the chat. What part of the project are you most excited about moving forward? So we're 6 months into a 12-month project with the Reverse the Red Accelerator Award. I know you guys are doing much bigger projects outside of this, but in terms of the next 6 months, what are you most looking forward to? And maybe we'll reverse it and not pick on Oliver first this time. So Fernando, what are you most looking forward to?
Okay. That will be that all the chicks fledge, and especially that one in Clarion. It's very encouraging, and I'm really excited about them. So and also the a new breeding pair being established in the artificial colony. That will be amazing. It's something. So far we have over 100 interactions. So it's really encouraging because this process of social attraction takes time, and also the installation of a new colony. So I'm really excited and have a lot of hope of this project and the results here.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait to see the chicks fledging, and fingers crossed the artificial protected burrows are used. That's awesome. Aileen.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to our workshop in July, bringing everyone together. We've been studying all these different aspects, and to have the parasitologists and the water quality guys and everyone in the same room looking at all the different aspects to really understand the interrelationship between all these components is going to be really interesting. And then also, as part of that, we're probably going to be going back into the rivers to do more sampling. And so while I'm looking forward to it, it was pretty tough working in those rivers in December when it was warm and sunny. And now we're going to be wading into these freezing cold rivers in the middle of winter in high flow, which always adds an interesting dimension because we were very cold in some of those rivers in December. So I'm not sure how it's going to work in July, but it's always fun to be in the rivers. So we're looking forward to that.
Do you wear like waders or like any protective clothing for the cold?
Yeah, so we will probably have to in July, but in December, these rivers are so fluctuating with temperatures. So even though it was warm, we didn't have wetsuits because it was December. There were some days where we were freezing, and we didn't expect to be. And because you actually you're wading in swimming and you're watching the movement of the species, so you're actually wading in the water. At some point, we were all like shaking. We couldn't see because we were all so cold. And that was December. So I don't know what it's going to be like in July. So we'll see. We'll have to have wetsuits, I think.
Fingers crossed it's not too cold,
Yeah.
but fun. Fun to be outside.
Yeah. Always fun.
Great. And Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to going to the field, as many people in our industry are. I'm quite far away from where all the stuff is actually taking place, so I only get to typically go out like once a year. But the thing I'm really looking forward to seeing is just seeing the seedlings grow, starting to see the forest regenerate and really having that more sort of tangible element from start to finish. And I say this quite a lot about this project. This habitat is so severely degraded. It's quite a remarkable thing, really, that it's remarkable and scary. You can be walking through this very pristine rainforest and you turn around the corner and it's suddenly like you've walked into this sort of European temperate forest. The entire shift of all the flora changes. And it's a little bit scary to kind of see, because to any sort of lay member of the public, it is just full of trees, and that's a good thing. But in reality, it's bad. It's a sign that something's really, really gone wrong here. So it's nice to actually go and see the removal of those trees and the planting out of the native assembly and sort of seeing how they grow as time goes on. So for sure, that's the thing I'm looking forward most to seeing.
Yeah, that is so true. Something similar here. I'm in Canada, as you'll see non-native pine stands and no undergrowth, and you don't hear anything. The forest is silent because it's non-native. So I think, yeah, understanding that and seeing it is quite sad. So that's great news that, you can see the beginnings of a regenerated native forest. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I do have a few more questions, but I know we've got limited time, so I'm just gonna check chat.
Can I ask a question to Oliver? If there's
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious. You mentioned that there's a close relationship between the gecko and a specific tree. Do you know why there's such a close association? Is there something? Are they eating something there? What is the actual reason for that very close link?
So it's a good question, and it is also something that needs further research to understand exactly. There is peer-reviewed literature that points out that there is a codependency, that when you walk through the forest, you will almost exclusively just see them on this species of tree. We can only really sort of hypothesize it, but likelihood is it grows very high. So that's one thing. So it's quite away from the ground from predators. It allows for them to be seen really easily. It's a bit of another problem of theirs. They're bright blue geckos, which is quite rare in nature to see anyway. But it makes them much more easy to spot for the females, which aren't nearly as vivid and blue. They're sort of like muted in green. So I'd imagine there's quite a lot that comes to breeding behaviors associated with it as well. And just as a result, through their evolutionary history, they seem to co-evolved with this particular species of tree, but we could do with some more robust scientific understanding as to what that relationship is. And at the moment, we just don't really know more than anecdotally that they are on the tree, and that there is some literature that says they're on the tree.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Again, showing how there's so much to know. There's so
We
much
know.
to learn still.
We know so little.
All right. So I don't see any questions in the chat. Please put them in there if you have any. But I have a question in the meantime, which is, how do you hope your project will impact the species overall? And I think I'll start with you, Elaine, because you're the only one who hasn't gone first yet.
Okay, sure. Well, in a simplistic way, we would love to see this redfin expand into 10 kilometers of river, because that's a beautiful habitat there, and it would be great to just expand it. But we also want to be very cautionary in terms of not disturbing the system as a whole. So what we'd like to see is a way of expanding its range, but also protecting the system as a whole. But our real gold standard that we would like to see is to find that the awareness that we raise through this project and other projects will solve the bigger problem that we face, and that is that its existing habitat would be restored in some small way, whether that is allowing more flow into the river in the summer, which is really what we need, and we are working on that. But it is just such a difficult infrastructure challenge, because it actually changes the whole way in which a community receives its water and how it gets it, and that's costly EIAs, long-term processes. So I think the best thing would be to find a way that river is actually a suitable habitat for the redfin and that's going to be 10 years down the line maybe. So, but we know that we've got to just keep working towards that longer term goal.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Great work. And it shows conservation projects, although this one is only a 12-month small part of it, they take a lot of time to recover species. So yeah, hopefully we can help along the way so that its habitat is back to pristine. All right. Oliver, what do you hope to get out of this project for your species?
So my hope would be that within the project itself, it would be nice to see a tangible amount of hectareage restored within the forest. Long term for the species, it would then be good to see populations start to recolonize areas that were severely degraded, and to the point where they proliferate around the entire forest, and they're not just in these more pristine pockets. It's something as well that's the working theory that is the case, but we need to prove that is the case. As time goes on, it'd just be nice to see the habitat restored. It's a very tangible amount of land. It's not a big forest block, and it fits very well within the scope to restore the entire thing and then protect it long term. And we need lots of good partnerships and things going forward. It's great already to see the work that institutes like Queen University and ZGAP have been doing there, but it's nice to sort of see more collaborative efforts as time goes on, to the point where everyone within the landscape is effectively restoring it. And then we have, this great little pocket in the world where this really, really unique species exists. And as well as that, loads and loads of other endemic species that exist within this forest block as well. So yeah, the hope of the project is that it just protects the habitat really, so that the animals within it can thrive.
That's great. And I feel like there's some similarities there between those two projects, is we've got to restore this habitat to get the species back.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for conservation projects with that. If you build it, they will come, and where we can make it so that the habitats are self-sustaining and what they should be, it takes a lot of work a lot of need for that work to happen, because we're not firefighting at that point. We are actively just allowing them to have these spaces.
That's great. Fernando, what do you hope, to get out of this project for your species?
Yeah, I guess the overall impact is to reverse the decline of the species, ultimately create resilience. We know it is a long-term project and a long-term goal, but this is the beginning, and we believe we have the the key to reverse the decline, because we have the chicks that are being protected right now are doing well. So as much chicks that we can protect, they can fledge and be more young birds out there to come back to the islands and nest. And with this grow, the population to grow. So, and if we can do this in Clarion as well as in Socorro Island, which are the two breeding colonies, we believe there's a lot of possibilities of this, and this create more resilience for the species, because as much nesting colonies we have, there's more opportunities and resilience against the climate change and other threats. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot more resilience when you have bigger numbers, bigger genetic diversity. Yeah, and it's the overarching goal. We hope that too at Reverse the Red is, reversing the decline of these species. I think that's for all of us. So I have a question from Megan. Megan, I don't know if you wanted to turn your camera on.
Sure. I have one question that I didn't prepare our panelists for, but the theme for the International Day of Biological Diversity is acting locally for global impact. And so I just wanted to know from each of you, what does that mean to you? It can be in relation to this specific project or your work, more broadly within your organizations, but what does it mean to you to act locally for global impact? And since I did not prepare you for this, whoever maybe has an answer can go first.
I can just say something briefly on that. I mean, all our projects have to make a difference at the local level, but I think in every single conservation project, you learn so much that can be applied in other contexts and can be applied more broadly. I know that in our project, this is the first time they're really looking at a methodology for a translocation project in South Africa. And so a lot of the lessons can actually be shared so that the next time we look at something like this, we actually have learned from those lessons can be passed on beyond the local to an approach, and the challenges that we've overcome can then maybe be easier for the next person. So I think the more we can share the lessons and build cases, the easier and the more cost effective it can be for the next person. And then that can have more of a global impact because we're being more efficient as a conservation society by learning from each other and passing those lessons on.
Wonderful. I love that. Oliver, Fernando?
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. It's a good question as well. Thank you. I suppose for me, I really think of it from the perspective of capacity building within country. And it's because I'm operating very far away from where the actual project is, and gone are the days of parachute conservation, going in, doing some stuff, and then almost immediately leaving. And I think we've managed to work that quite well into our project that we're doing with you guys. So the 150 undergraduate students who go out to the forest, have already gone out to the forest as part of their degree. They're gaining those skills. They're seeing in-person conservation work happening. And those are the conservationists of the future for Tanzania, So if we can build up that skill set within country, it only goes on to grow the capacity for this kind of work. And Tanzania itself is a country where a lot of these principles could be applied to other forest blocks, and there are a lot of other forest blocks that need that work. So as we slowly build up that capacity, it spreads out across the country, and we ultimately go on to do a lot more beneficial work. So I'd say on the local level, that's one of the big things I feel we can deliver with this project.
Wonderful. Fernando?
Yeah, well, I think in our case with seabirds are the seabirds are the bridge between the land portion and the sea. So they are good indicators of the state of the sea and the ecosystem of the islands. So while we can as we can keep the islands safe and the ecosystem working well. This reflects also in the sea. So the or impacts for the species can be at the island level, but also at sea. It's an important its important role in the ecosystem. So I think that's a global impact that can go beyond the border. Yeah.
Those are all wonderful answers. I'm so happy that you were all able to join us and share more about your work, both in your Accelerator Award projects and, more broadly. I think it really shows the impact of our collective impact as well. Caitlin mentioned our species pledge all the way at the beginning of the session, and we have over 5,000 now, and that is a huge collective impact that this community, is showcasing and being a part of. And so thank you to everyone who has joined us either live now or is watching this in the future. You all are doing amazing work acting locally for global impact as well. And we really thank you for all of that amazing work that you're doing and for joining us for this celebratory session. Please look forward for our continuing webinar series through Reverse the Red. We will do more highlights with other Accelerator Award winners in the next few months, as well as other projects progress at different timings. So we'll be really excited to bring you some more wonderful success stories that showcase all of the hard work of our Accelerator winners. So thank you all so much. The recording will be posted shortly, and please do continue to stay in touch, and we hope to see you all soon. So happy International Day for Biological Diversity, everyone.